Our today's class is on linguistics and designed for the students of honors third year. When we were running our classes in the department, we started linguistics, and in linguistics, you know that phonetics and phonology is an important part of that subject. And in phonetics and phonology, we also discussed place of articulation of consonant sounds. You know that there are two types of sounds, consonant sounds and vowel sounds. So we got the opportunity to discuss place of articulation of consonant sounds in the classroom. But since we are going to discuss manner of articulation of consonant sounds in today's class, so at the beginning I would like to recap some of the important elements of place of articulation of consonant sounds. First, we will do it quickly, and after that we are going to manner of articulation of consonant sounds. Now let's try to remember what we studied in place of articulation of consonant sounds. Now in place of articulation of consonant sounds, what basically we discussed that at first we gave a kind of definition that what is place of articulation of consonant sounds. Once the air has passed through the larynx, it comes up and out through the mouth and or the nose. Now, dear students, try to understand one thing, that basically air comes from the lungs and air passes through some places. And at first it passes through the larynx, then pharynx, and then it comes out of our mouth. So air basically comes out either through the mouth or through the nose. So that's how sound is produced. So place of articulation basically means the position or the place within your mouth where the sound originates. Most consonant sounds are produced by using the tongue and other parts of the mouth. And remember one thing, that tongue is the most important active articulator, and the other parts of our mouth are also involved, but most of them stay passive, but tongue is the most active one. And air passes through mainly through our mouth, or it can also pass through our nose, but in 90% cases or 95% cases it passes through our mouth. And that's how we identify the origin or place of consonant sounds. So the place of articulation means the location inside the mouth at which the constriction takes place. Now, when we will discuss place of articulation of consonant sounds, we will try to identify the areas within our mouth where the sound originates. Now, bilabials. So these are some sounds that originate in a particular place. Where do they originate? Let's see. These sounds are formed using both upper and lower lips. Just remember that bi and labia, these are Greek words, and bi means both and labia means lips. So bilabial means where the two lips are involved. So when you produce sound using your two lips, then these sounds are called bilabial sounds. So bilabial sounds are basically produced with the friction of the two lips. The initial sounds in the words pat, bat, and mat are all bilabials. Now you have to also pronounce with me. Look at the sound that comes at the initial stage of the word pat, paw, paw, baw, maw. These are all bilabial sounds. Why they are bilabial? Because just see that I am using my two lips, the upper lip and the lower lip. Pat, pat, paw, paw, paw. So the two lips are involved. Bat, baw, baw, and mat. These are bilabial sounds. So this is very simple sounds that originate with the friction of two lips, and it basically originates here, over here. So sounds that originate over here, they are known as bilabial sounds, and in bilabial sounds the two lips are involved. They are represented by the symbols. Now we will use symbols. Now there are also vowel symbols, and there are symbols of vowel sounds, I must say, and there are also symbols of consonant sounds. Sometimes we will see that basically in consonant sounds that the alphabets, they themselves have been used as symbols. So the alphabet P, we know that P is an alphabet, but you must notice one thing, that here we are not pronouncing P, we are saying paw, because the sound is not P. P is alphabet, but the sound is paw, which is voiceless, and bo and mo, they are voiced. So what does voiceless mean and what does voiced mean? Voiceless means if you just keep your thumb over here, and if you utter the sound, or if you pronounce the sound paw, 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 you will not feel any vibration over here. Just keep your thumb over here and try to pronounce paw, paw, paw. You will not feel any kind of vibration. But when you pronounce baw, baw, maw, maw, you will feel that there is a kind of vibration over here. So when you will find a vibration, it is basically voiced sound, and when there is no vibration, this is voiceless. Remember that this is phonetics and phonology, so we will basically discuss with sounds, nothing else, and how the sounds originate, from where do the sounds originate, and these are the things which are important for phonetics and phonology. Now the W, this is the alphabet W. Now this W is pronounced in different ways, sometimes we, sometimes wa, sometimes we. So sound found at the beginning of we, wak word as bilabial. So when we pronounce way, look what I am saying, way. So I am starting, the sound starts from here with the friction of the two lips, bilabial. That is why it is bilabial. Way. Now the way we people, we are not native speakers of English, the way we people pronounce words, this is obviously different from the way the native speakers speak. Now when you will see, or you will notice the native speakers pronouncing these words, you will see that they pronounce the way I am saying now. They say way, wak. That is why the pronunciation varies from the native speakers and from second or foreign language speakers. Wak. We simply say wak. There is no connection between the two lips when we pronounce the word wak. But when the British people, they pronounce the word wak, then they say wak, and that is why the pronunciation varies. And the world as a bilabial, world. We say world. We don't connect the two lips. We say simply world. But when they pronounce the word, they say world. So these are the bilabial sounds. So bilabial sounds originate over here in these two lips. And as I said, bi means both and labia means lips. So bilabial means when the two lips are involved in creating sound. Now labiodental, the next sound, the place of articulation. We are discussing the place of articulation of consonant sounds. These are the sounds formed with the upper teeth and the lower lip. Try to understand, where does the sound originate? Upper teeth and lower lip. This is the lower lip. So there will be a connection between this lower lip and upper teeth. So the initial sounds of the words fat, vat, and vat, and the final sounds in the words save, are labiodentals. As I said earlier, labia means the lip and dental means, the teeth. Now labiodental sounds, where are they produced? Where do they originate? They originate when there is a friction between the lower lip and upper teeth. Let's again try. Fa, va. So fat, the initial sound at the beginning of the word fat, and then vat, and the final sounds in the words save. So these are labiodental sounds. They are represented by the symbols fa, not f. F is the alphabet and fa is the sound, which is voiceless. So which one is voiceless? Just try over here. Fa. for, you will not feel any vibration. But if you pronounce va, 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 you will feel a kind of vibration. Now notice that the final sound in the word calf and the initial sound in photo, despite the spelling differences, are both pronounced as for, for. So don't get confused that sometimes this sign is used as an alphabet F, and sometimes it is used as a symbol which is pronounced as for, not as F. So there's a difference between letters and sounds, a symbol of sounds. Now comes dental. These sounds are formed with the tongue tip behind the upper front teeth over here. The tip of the tongue, and behind the upper front teeth. The initial sound of thin, 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 and the final sound of but, are both voiceless dentals. They are voiceless, as we have already noticed that if there is no vibration when we pronounce them, then it is voiceless. But when there is vibration, then it is voiced. The symbol used for this sound is theta, usually referred as theta, as I've said. It is the symbol you use for the first and last sounds in phrase three teeth, three teeth. Now, as I have said that you will try which one is voiceless by putting your thumb over here, and if you feel any vibration, then it is voiced. If there is no vibration, it is voiceless. Now, three, the initial sound is dental. Three, 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 because the tip of the tongue, it touches the area just behind the upper front lip. And the voiced dental is represented by the symbol do, usually called do. This sound is found in the pronunciation of the initial sound of common words like the, there, then, does. So in the initial sounds of these words, you will notice that your tongue tip is just behind the upper front teeth. Your tongue tip is just behind the upper front teeth. How? Again, pronounce with me. The, the, there, then, does. So sounds that are produced over here in this position with the tip of the tongue just behind the upper front teeth are known as dental sounds. Students will discuss these things in the classroom. That's why I'm going first. Alveolus. These are sounds formed with the front part of tongue and on the alveolar ridge. Now, which is the alveolar ridge? Which is the rough bony ridge immediately behind the upper teeth. Now, just behind the upper teeth, you will see a bony area, a hard area, not palate. Palate is just behind the ridge. So just behind the teeth, upper front teeth, you will notice, you will feel a kind of bony area, hard, which is hard. And the initial sound in top, now just pronounce like me, top, top, top. And just stop when you are pronouncing the sound to, to, to. Now you feel where does your tongue have a kind of friction, do, so, zo. So in the initial sound of top, deep, sit, zoo, and at the ending of nut are all alveolus. So let's try again. What are the alveolus sounds? Where do they originate? The alveolus sounds originate just with the behind the of the tongue on the alveolar ridge, which is the rough or bony area immediately behind the upper teeth. And the sounds are to, do, so, zo, no. Of these, to and so are voiceless, whereas do, zo, and no are voiced. So lastly, I would like to say that the front part of the tongue, and it will have a kind of friction on the alveolar ridge. The ridge is just the rough and bony area immediately behind the upper teeth. Let's go to palatals. Now, if you feel back behind the alveolar ridge, just behind the alveolar ridge, you should find a hard part in the roof of your mouth. Palate is basically the roof of your mouth. Sounds produced with the tongue and the palate are called palatals or alveopalatals, you can also say. Examples of palatals are the initial sounds in the words shout, shout, shaw, 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 talobbosha, the sound of talobbosha, shaw, and child, chaw, chaw. So you realize, you feel that it's just the roof of the mouth which is where the sound originates. Now, which are voiceless? Both of these sounds are voiceless. The shaw sound is represented by, you can notice the symbol, you can notice the sign, how shaw sound is represented, and the chaw sound is represented as you notice over here, chaw. You can see that after T there is a long type of sign. So the word shoe brush begins and ends with the voiceless palatal sound, both having shaw, shoe brush, shoe brush. And the word church begins and ends with the other voiceless palatal sound, chaw, church. So starting with chaw and ending with chaw, church, church. Now the voiced palatal is jaw, jaw, which is the initial sound in the word like joke and gem. Don't say there is a difference between jaw and zaw, jaw and zaw. You will pronounce zoo, 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 and you will pronounce joke, joke, joke. So zaw and jaw. Now over here we will pronounce joke, gem. The word judge and the name George both begin and end with the sound jaw, despite the obvious differences in spelling. So you understand that what is the palate and what are the palatal sounds. Velus, even further back in the roof of your mouth, beyond the hard palate, you will find a soft area just behind the roof of your mouth. You will find a soft area which is called soft palate or the velum. Sounds produced with the back of the tongue against the velum are called velars. So the back of the tongue and the velum will be in action. So some sounds are produced over there. There is a voiceless velar sound represented by the symbol caw, caw, caw. Now you feel that the back part of your tongue is working and the back part of the, not back part, just behind the palate, the soft area is also involved, which occurs not only in kid. Now let's take the example kid, kid, and kill, kill. So the initial sound is velar sound, but it's also the initial sound of car and cold. The spelling is different. In the first two cases we see kid and kill. It starts with K, but the initial sound in car and cold, they start with C, but the sound is ko. The sound is ko. Try to understand. The spelling is CAR and the spelling is KILL. There is difference in the spelling, but there is no difference in sound. So spelling may vary, but the spelling does not always mean that the sound has to be same. Despite the variety in spelling, this ko sound is both the initial and final sound in the words cook, kick, and coke. The voiced velar sound here at the beginning of words like go, gun, and give is represented by go. This is also the final sound in words like bag, mug, plague. The velum can be lowered to allow air to flow through the nasal cavity and thereby produce another voiced velar represented by the sound umo. So the umo sound is at the end of sing. This sound is sometimes also represented in a different way and with a different name, but we have included it here in the velar sound. Sing, the last sound of the word sing. Now let's go to the next sound, glottals. There is one sound that is produced without the active use of tongue and other parts of the mouth. It is the sound haw, which occurs at the beginning of the have, Don't say age. I am telling you one thing repeatedly, that the alphabet and the symbol or sign is different. Sometimes in case of, not sometimes, in most times in case of consonant sounds, the alphabets themselves have been used as symbol. This problem doesn't occur in vowel sounds because the symbols are quite different from the alphabet. But in case of consonant sounds, the alphabets themselves have been used in most cases as symbols. So there the problem arises. Now this is a haw sound at the beginning of have and house. And for most speakers, the first sound is who and whose. This sound is usually described as a voiceless glottal. The glottis is the space between the vocal folds in the larynx. When the glottis is open, as in the production of other voiceless sounds, and there is no manipulation of the air passing out of the mouth, the sound produced is that represented by a haw, as I have already said. Now, where is glottis? Now, here just you will behind the tonsil, the area is known as pharynx. Just below the pharynx is larynx. So this sound originates in larynx. Now that is why the area is, as I have said, the area has been known as glottal cavity, or this part of your throat. Just behind the pharynx there is larynx, and the voice originates and the sound originates there. Just pronounce with me, haw, haw. Now you see that there is no impediment, there is no restriction, no barrier of the air passing through your mouth. So these sounds are known as glottal sounds. So dear students, we had discussed it in the classroom, so that's why I was in a hurry and I completed it quite quickly. Now we are going to manner of articulation of consonant sounds. Now we are starting a manner of articulation of consonant sounds. Manner of articulation refers to the sounds in terms of how they are articulated. Look at the difference. Place of articulation means where do the sound originate, the place the sounds originate. And manner of articulation refers to the way how sounds are articulated. We are dealing with consonant sounds, not with vowel sounds. Now, such a description is necessary if we want to be able to differentiate between some sounds. For example, we can say that taw and saw are both voiceless alveolar sounds, but they differ in their manner of articulation, that is, in the way they are pronounced. Now, remember one thing. The sounds which were under one point in place of articulation may be under different points in manner of articulation. Taw and saw were both alveolar sounds because they originated in the alveolar region. But when we will discuss manner of articulation, the palatal sounds may, some of the palatal sounds may be under one point, some of the palatal sounds may be under another point. Some of the bilabial sounds may be under one point, that means they can be pronounced in one manner. Some of the bilabial sounds can be pronounced in a different manner. Some of the glottal sounds can be pronounced in one manner, some other glottal sounds can be pronounced in a different manner. So you will notice a difference that between place of articulation and manner of articulation. In place of articulation, the sounds which are always palatal may not be under the same point in manner of articulation. In place of articulation, which are alveolar sounds or which are bilabial sounds or which are labiodental sounds, don't think that all labiodental sounds, all bilabial sounds or glottal sounds will be under the same point in manner of articulation. They will vary. One, you can also notice that one bilabial sound and another palatal sound, they may be under same banner. So this is how we will look at manner of articulation. At first comes stops or plosive sounds, we say. Of the sounds, the set paw, baw. Now you see paw and baw. These two are bilabial sounds. But after that we don't see the examples. These examples are not bilabial examples. Taw, 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 alveolar. Daw, caw, caw, gaw. Now, you see the difference that some of the sounds over here in stop, some of them are bilabial, some of them alveolar, some of them maybe glottal. So they will vary in manner of articulation. So why does this variation come? Because the way we pronounce these sounds, that becomes more important. How do we pronounce? Their origin can be different. Some may originate in the two lips, some may originate in the alveolar ridge, some may originate in the palate, some may originate in the velum. But if they are pronounced in the same manner, that is our main concern here. So all these sounds, po, bo, to, do, ko, go, they are produced by some form of stopping of the air stream and then letting it go abruptly. Stopping of the air stream, what does it mean? I have said that the air comes from the lungs. So there is a kind of stop, there is a kind of obstacle, a kind of barrier in this case of sounds. What kind of barrier? We don't allow the air to come. Let's try. Paw, paw, paw. Just hold the air for a few seconds within your mouth. Paw, paw. Now you understand, you realize that there is a kind of barrier that your two lips create. Paw, paw. And after creating the barrier, we just release the air. Taw. So the barrier sometimes is created through your lips. The barrier sometimes is created through the tongue tip and the alveolar ridge. So the barrier can be created in many parts of your mouth. But the important factor is that there will be a kind of obstacle of the airflow. And after creating the obstacle, we will let the air pass abruptly. Po, bo, to, do, ko, go. Now you see that we are stopping the air and then we are allowing it to go abruptly, very quickly. So the way these sounds are produced, this manner is known as stops. This type of consonant sound resulting from blocking or stopping effect on the air stream, I have already explained, is called a stop or a plosive. A full description of the to sound at the beginning of a word like 10 is a voiceless alveolar stop. 10, 10, 10. So you notice that the air is not allowed to come in a straightforward manner. We create a kind of stop and then we allow it to come out. So this sound, the way these sounds are produced is known as stops. Now comes fricatives. The manner of articulation used in producing the set of sounds like fo, vo, tho, do, so, zo, shaw involves almost blocking of the air stream and having the air pushed through the very narrow opening. As the air is pushed through, a type of friction is produced and the resulting sounds are called fricatives. If someone puts his open hand in front of his mouth, which making these sounds for and saw in particular, he should be able to feel the stream of the air being pushed out. The usual pronunciation of the word fish begins and ends with the voiceless fricatives for and shaw. There are words those begin and end with the voiced fricatives do and zo. The sound ho as in hi or hello is voiceless and also usually included in the set of fricatives. Now what does fricative mean? Fricative means friction. There should be a kind of friction. So what is the difference between fricatives and stops? In the sounds under the banner stops, we stopped the airflow completely and then we suddenly released the air. Now in case of fricatives, our style, our manner is different. What is the difference? The air stream we have, it comes from the lungs, as I said, and blocking the air stream, we are blocking the air stream and having the air pushed through the very narrow opening, and we are creating a kind of barrier here, and we are allowing the air to push through narrow openings. So we create a narrow space in our mouth. Try with me. For, paw, 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 paw. The air doesn't get sufficient space to come out, and that's why there is a kind of friction in our mouth. Thaw, daw, saw, zaw, shaw. So there is a kind of friction. And why do the friction arise? Because we are not allowing the air to come abruptly, to come quickly. That's why the friction starts in our mouth. So the way these sounds are produced, they are known as fricatives. Remember, fricatives are sounds. They are produced in the manner when we are blocking the air stream and having the air pushed through narrow opening. We are not fully opening our mouth. We are creating a narrow opening and allowing the air to come through that narrow opening of our mouth. In this way, the sounds which are created, they are known as fricatives. Now let's go to the next slide. Affricates. If you combine a brief stopping of the air stream with an obstructed release, which causes some friction, you will be able to produce sounds like chaw and jaw. Now, what is the difference between affricates and fricatives? You know, in case of fricatives, what we say, there was a kind of stop, there was a kind of obstacle, and then we formed a narrow opening in our mouth, and we allowed air to come through that narrow opening. But here, what we are doing, that we have obstructed the release of air, and then we are releasing it through that obstacle. So in affricates, what we see, what are the differences now then between stops, fricatives and affricates? Again, because these three ways of pronouncing sound, they create a kind of confusion. In case of stops, we fully stop the airflow and release the air abruptly. In case of fricatives, we stop the airflow, but then we create a narrow opening, but there is less obstruction or obstacle. In case of affricates, we also create a kind of stop, but these sounds are always produced through the obstructed release. I mean, the obstruction is always there, and there is a kind of pressure we have to use. Again, let's try chaw, chaw, chaw. You notice the difference between paw, paw, taw, and chaw, because in case of paw, taw, you release the air, but in case of chaw and jaw, you have to release the air facing a kind of obstacle. So these sounds are known as affricates. The way these sounds are produced are known as affricates. And in the first of these, there is a voiceless affricate, chaw, chaw. You have already understood what is voiceless. And in the sound, a voiced affricate, jaw, jaw. So chaw is voiceless affricate and jaw is voiced affricates. Now let's go to the nasal sounds. Most sounds are produced orally with the velum raised, preventing airflow from entering the nasal cavity. However, when the velum is lowered and the airstream is allowed to flow out through the nose to produce mo, no, and umo, the sounds are described as nasals. So what happens? In most cases, we see that the velum is raised, and thus there is a kind of gap in our throat. On the other hand, when the velum is lowered, when there is less space in our mouth, in our throat, in the velum, then what we see, when the velum is lowered and the airstream is allowed to flow out through the nose, and we produce mo, no, and umo sounds, because in these cases the air passes through our nose. The sounds are described, these kinds of sounds are described as nasal sounds. These three sounds are all voiced. The words morning, these are all voiced sounds. Morning, mo, mo, more, then knitting, and begin. The ends with nasal. Now, in nasal sounds, what we have sing. What we have seen in nasal sounds, we have seen that the velum is lowered and the air does not get sufficient space to come out through the mouth, and facing obstacle, it comes through the nose. So when air is coming through the nose, some sounds are being produced, and these sounds are known as nasal sounds. Now, liquids. The initial sounds in lead and red are described as liquids. Law, law, raw. They are liquid sounds. They are both voiced. The law sound is called a lateral liquid and is formed by letting the air stream flow around the sides of the tongue as the tip of the tongue makes contact with the middle of the alveolar ridge. So, law, law, your tongue tip touches the alveolar ridge, and what happens? The air stream flows around the sides of the tongue. So there is a kind of flow, there is a kind of wave in the air stream. Your tongue tip will touch the alveolar ridge, it's true, but when your tongue tip touches the alveolar ridge, there is a kind of flow of air in your mouth, a wave of air in your mouth, and that's how this sound is produced. Let's try again. Law, law, law. There is a kind of, what should I say, wave. There is a kind of wave is produced in our mouth. Raw, raw. So, raw sound at the beginning of red is formed with the tongue tip raised and curled back near the alveolar ridge. So, the first sound, law, is lateral liquid because it is created almost in the region of alveolar ridge. And the next one, raw, 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 it's back near the alveolar ridge. But both of them are liquids, and in liquid sound, as I said earlier, that the tongue tip will be very close or it will touch the alveolar ridge, and there will be a kind of wave of air in your mouth. Glides. The sounds, as I said, we or wa and ear are described as glides. They are both voiced and occur at the beginning of we, wet, you, and yes, yes. Now, W, I am saying that it's an alphabet, but when we are pronouncing we, W, we, wet, wet, you, yes. These sounds are typically produced with the tongue in motion or gliding. So the tongue is not confined to any particular place. It is in motion, in producing the sounds. I am saying glides to or form the position of a vowel and sometimes called semi-vowels. And when we produce this type of sounds like we, wet, you, and yes, our tongue remains almost in the position of forming vowel sounds. You know, when we will discuss vowel sounds, we will discuss how the vowel sounds are produced. The tongue has a different position while creating vowel sounds, and the tongue has another type of position when it's creating consonant sounds. But what is interesting in the sounds of glides, the tongue almost goes to the area of vowel sounds. So that's why these sounds are often known as semi-vowels. Again, we are saying we, wet, you, yes. So these are glides, and these are almost created in the position of vowels. So thank you, students, for attending this class. I know that it's a difficult subject, and we will try our limit best to cooperate you, and I will upload notes of linguistics as soon as possible so that you can download it from our Facebook page and take preparation at home. I will again let you know that on which topic I am going to take my next class. So thank you very much. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.